Welcome to the Panic Room.
This is Fantasy Football Almost Daily with your hosts, Paul Charchian, Christian Peterson, Matt Harrison, and Brian Johnson.
It's Wednesday. Welcome to everybody's favorite fantasy football game show, The Panic Room. It's the only fantasy football game show that I know of, but let's not get bogged down in the details, shall we? Welcome to Fantasy Football Almost Daily. I'm Paul Charchian, Christian Peterson, Brian Johnson, getting you ready to play the Panic Room game. This is where we compete with 5 players about whom fantasy owners are nervous or even panicked, and we challenge our 2 contestants to come up with the appropriate level of panic. Our reigning champion and birthday boy today, turning 4 decades old, Christian Peterson.
I would bow if I wasn't sitting down.
Yeah, well, it's sort
Actually,
of like a bow.
I don't have to bow.
About
I'm the
anybody.
king.
No,
you
of
guys
course.
should be bowing.
You should be kneeling,
kissing the ring, or
exactly.
something.
Yeah, this should be a moment of genuflecting.
Yes.
Challenger Brian Johnson.
Challenger, non-birthday boy. I'm really liking my chances here.
You like your chances.
Yeah.
Now you're not saying it like you mean it. Sell it a little bit.
Yeah, out before pregame during the pregame, he was talking trash out there.
He
said
was
he was
talking
going to
a
take me
little
down at my birthday party in the Panic Room.
Now,
so,
people
he's changed his tune already.
I believe it's pronounced birthday party.
The people on Twitter saying that because of his hatred of the crown, that Brian's not even gonna try. He's gonna tank intentionally. Can you debunk that?
It's a convenient excuse for him.
That's a good point.
He can
When
just
he
lose
loses,
every week and
that's
claim
right.
that he tried to.
That's a great point.
People are actually talking about that on Twitter.
A lot of talk
you wouldn't
about that on
believe how
Twitter.
much chatter there is
Absolutely.
about it.
We begin with LaShawn McCoy as our first contestant up. It's not about productivity, of course, because McCoy's been very good that way. It's about the lingering issues with total usage and hamstring concerns. What is the appropriate level of concern for LaShawn McCoy? Is it none, some, or acute? As the reigning champion and sitter upon her of the throne, you get
Very
to go
well
first.
said.
Yeah, thank you. It was a nice turn of phrase for me.
I'm going to go with some panic on LaShawn McCoy. I think the panic is strictly injury related here. Rex Ryan is an idiot. He suited up LaShawn McCoy last week and played him despite the fact that he shouldn't have been playing. And then, of course, he aggravated the hamstring and was knocked out of the game. Now we're in a situation this week where it's basically the same. They've said he's got a chance to play, but they're not sure. I really wish they would just sit him down and give him a couple weeks to get healthy, in part because the schedule over the next 3 weeks is really bad. They get New England this week, then they're at Seattle, then they have a bye. So this is where the panic is. You have to be a little bit panicked because you're going to get literally nothing out of
him,
McCoy for the next 3 weeks. But I'm assuming he'll get healthy. Either they'll sit him out or they won't play him much over the next 2 weeks, and then he's got the bye. After the bye, they come back. And the schedule is really light. To finish the fantasy season, they have Oakland in week 13, Pittsburgh in week 14, Cleveland in 15, and Miami in 16. So that's a very advantageous schedule. And the Bills, they can just run the ball. They've been doing it all year. They're number 1 in yards per carry. They're number 7 in rushing attempts per game. They're number 2 in rushing yards per game. They're number 1 in rushing touchdowns per game.
Yeah.
So this is what they do. They can run the ball. We've seen they can run the ball even when Mike Gillislee is the running back. So I'm not concerned about the offense. The schedule looks good after this next 3 weeks, but because of the injury, because of the difficulty in trying to get past this next 3 weeks, there has to be some panic.
What do you think?
I have some too, and I had all the same
That's a
talking
5.
points.
That's not.
That's an S.
That's an
Yeah,
S.
you got it. There you go. Now you got to
All right,
rotate
no,
it.
Thank you. Okay, and that still looks like a 5.
I already
Either way.
mailed it. Can't
Can't
even
even write
can't
the
even be
OME?
bothered to write out 4
That
letters.
does not look like a 5. This looks like a 5.
Okay, there's 5.
That's a 5.
I don't know. It's pretty
I have
similar to
nothing
me.
to add. McCoy
Now,
missed
if you have
4.
nothing to add, you can't win. I mean, the whole point of this is that it's not even who's right; it's who makes the best
All right,
argument.
well, we come in here and we prep for like 30 minutes, so I don't have any extra. I don't have backup prep for
Okay.
McCoy. He missed 4 games for.
It's my home field advantage. I got to go first as the reigning champ,
That's
and
right.
I just I tackled every single possible argument.
Yeah. Okay. I have none. I'm not worried about this hamstring injury that
Wait, do you need
caused
to
him
write
miss
an
4
N
games.
on the board?
I concede the first point to the birthday boy king.
All right,
The
done.
birthday man king.
We'll go to number 2.
I'm a man.
Take
You're
your
a man,
star.
you're 40.
40.
Yeah, you are a man. Take your star.
Okay.
You are currently leading 1-0.
Don't mind if I
Our
do.
next contestant is Matt Jones, benched last week after a couple of fumbles. We saw a lot of Chris Thompson. We didn't see as much Rob Kelly as I think we'd like to see, but he's overall had a pretty good season. What's the appropriate level of concern for Matt Jones owners? Brian, you get to go first this time.
That is an A.
A
right?
means
for acute.
Acute.
Maybe I'll give
level
him
of
an A
concern.
plus, acute plus.
Okay.
He's really bad.
Super acute.
He's really bad holding on to the football. 3 lost fumbles already, leads the NFL. He had 4 last year and 144 carries. That puts him on a full season pace for 7, which is, you just can't trust a guy that fumbles that much. And we saw him get benched last week. It's going to happen again. I'll move my notes over here. And his schedule is just brutal, too. At Cincinnati this week, well, it's in London. Still a good run D. Then they're by Minnesota, Green Bay, at Dallas, at Arizona, at Philly, Carolina. None of those
are tough. Those are some tough run defenses in there.
There's no plus matchup there, and he doesn't catch passes. He fumbles a lot, so easily acute level of worry on Matt Jones.
All right.
I'm going to agree with the acute level.
Okay.
I have a few things to add here. So part of why I think you could argue that it's only some is that Washington just doesn't have anybody else. Chris Thompson is a nice player, but he's a third down scat back kind of guy. Rob Kelly is just a guy who they refused to give the ball last week, even after Matt Jones got benched. So I don't think he's much of a concern. And Jones has completely dominated the red zone carries for them. 18 red zone carries for Jones, a combined 7 for Thompson and Kelly. So that's where they're using Jones there. They haven't said that they're going to completely move on yet. If the fumbles continue, I'm sure they will.
That's where you can trust the fumblers in the red zone for sure.
Well, I know, but they apparently do, is sort of the point. But anyways, the schedule is not just bad; it's atrocious. Here, you mentioned the lineup, but so Minnesota is 8th against opposing running backs.
Surprised they're that low.
Green Bay is 1st. Dallas is 2nd. So that's just over the next 4 weeks. And then you look at the fantasy playoffs at Arizona; they're 3rd against the run right now. At Philly and Carolina, both of those are top half against the run. And then you didn't mention Chicago in the fantasy in week 16. They are actually 4th, top 5 against opposing running backs.
Yeah.
So the schedule can't possibly get worse. I don't think Matt Jones is going to completely lose this job, but because of the schedule, the concern is still acute.
Clear point for Brian, because you aped his schedule bit, and then you actually made a case for him being better than acute when you talked about all the red zone carries that he got. So clearly, point number 2 goes for Brian Johnson, third contestant.
There, I wrote my star this time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Very
Well,
much.
it's helpful for the people at home, so when you hold up the board.
Matt's got, like, right now, there's a star right here in my hands.
Oh, really?
Hook me up, Matt.
Okay.
You watch the Panic Room? I'm just kidding.
I'm in the I'm watching
know.
it right now as
Matt
we're
put
recording
some
it.
sweet graphics up. It's
Yeah.
high tech,
I
groundbreaking
understand
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
Well, are you saying it's more high tech than eraser board technology?
No, I'm certainly
Okay.
not more high tech than a scepter pen. We're on top of it all here.
Russell Wilson has 0 or 1 touchdown pass in every game this year but one. He has had basically 1 good game and 5 brutal ones because they've had a bye worked in there as well. He's doing nothing on the ground. What is the appropriate level of concern for Russell Wilson? We go back to the reigning champion, Christian Peterson.
We're going to go acute
Acute.
on Russell Wilson. The lack of rushing here is huge. He's been battling the ankle injury and a knee injury, and he's become an immobile quarterback. And that was part of what made him an elite-level fantasy producer over the last years. If you go to last year, take away his rushing numbers, which is fair to do. He's at 33 rushing yards.
On the season.
Which is almost nothing.
Yes.
There's all sorts of quarterbacks that have way more than that. So he just isn't running. So take away his rushing numbers from last year. He goes from QB3 to QB15. The year before, take away his rushing numbers, he goes from QB5 to QB20 in a standard scoring league. So that's how important the rushing is to Russell Wilson. He's never put up really high elite level passing numbers. So he needs those rushing numbers to contribute. And he's just not getting him. I don't know how he's going to get healthy behind this offensive line that's leading to all sorts of hits against him. He'll probably get a little healthier, but who knows? Maybe he re-injures something. Maybe he gets a new injury. So I don't think the rushing numbers coming back is a guarantee at all. The schedule, the rest of the way, it's kind of neutral. He has some really good ones. He has the Saints. He has the Bucs. He has the Panthers on the schedule, but some not great ones. Buffalo ranks 3rd against the pass. Philly ranks 2nd against the pass. Those are very difficult matchups. And then week 16 against Arizona. That's not easy either. Unfortunately for fantasy owners, he also misses the 49ers. The second of 2 49ers matchups is week 17, when if you're doing it right, your fantasy season is already over. So I don't see it turning around.
Okay.
I have
Brian,
some
show
level of
the
panic.
camera, not me. Okay.
For the people that are watching
Some
and
level
can't
of
hear.
panic on Russell Wilson.
I think he put up pretty elite passing numbers in the second half of the season last year when he was throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns per game. So I think he can get back to that, get hot again. It is all about the rushing. There has been
Is that fact, or we just
no? But you said he's never done it. But
we're going with 3 or 4 per game.
Single-handedly won people fantasy leagues last year. So I don't know.
Sounds right to me.
No, he's right that happened mostly on his arm last year in the second half. It's a small-ish sample size, but that was mostly built off of Russell Wilson's arm, not the legs last year.
Maybe it was. I don't
feel
know.
free
I
to
haven't heard any
continue.
stats. It's possible, but
So he hasn't been running. He's been hurt. We've covered that. He felt no ill effects after last week's game. So he's getting healthier, I believe. And he needs to start running because they're just stacking the box opponents against Christine Michael, who has 58, 64, and 52 rushing yards in his last 3 games. Great matchup this week for Wilson against New Orleans. Then it's a mixed bag, but a very nice stretch from week 12 to week 14 at Tampa Bay, Carolina at Green Bay. He can post those elite passing numbers. I just think he's going to get healthier and get better, so I'm not acutely panicked on him. I mean, there's other quarterbacks going to be more panicked about. We're going to talk about another one soon, so I'm just going to say some for Wilson.
Okay. I loved the fact that you took out all the rushing numbers out of his stats from the past few years and showed that impact. I had never heard that before. That was great data.
compelling and rich.
It was compelling.
Yeah.
It was rich. I had no idea that he would drop from like the third or
he dropped like 12 to 15 spots just by removing
taking
his
out the
rushing yardage
numbers.
and the touchdowns. But
maybe the rushing comes back, but maybe it doesn't. Point to the reigning champion. Our fourth our fourth player that we're going to talk about. You're the contestants. Although Carson Palmer's welcome to make an appearance anytime he wants. He could defend himself potentially. Carson Palmer.
Might have the time soon.
It's not Carson Palmer's first time here. We talked about him way back in Panic Room like week 2 when we started to identify that things did not look right for Carson Palmer back then. I think it was after the Bills game. Let's spend a second on Carson Palmer. Yardage has been good. The touchdowns haven't. The receivers have been flaky and injured. It's a weird spot for Carson Palmer. What's the appropriate level of panic? Is it none, acute, or some for Carson Palmer? Challenger, Brian.
I have an acute level of panic.
I'm starting to think people at home just think you can't spell acute or none or some. Maybe that's
He spelled out some last time.
Did he spell out some?
Yeah.
All right.
You can have a spelling bee later.
Right.
This time, I will note, I was watching him. He actually wrote the A upside down.
Impressive.
Oh,
On the flip.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give myself a star for that one, actually.
Because you can't be bothered to turn it right side up.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I talk now?
Yes. Please.
Completion percentage way down for Palmer compared to his last 3 years with Arizona. Diving deeper, he is 24th in adjusted net yards per attempt, which is a metric that factors passing yards, passing touchdowns, interceptions thrown, time sacked, and yards lost to being sacked. Basically how effective you are as a quarterback. Brady, Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees among the leaders in this category. So obviously elite QB1s in fantasy.
Yes.
Palmer is 24th right now. He was first last year with 8.4 yards per net yards per attempt. He's at under 6. His receivers are hurt. Not all of them. Jerron Brown lost for the year. Or was it J.J. Brown? I can't. No, J.J. Nelson.
Jerron Brown's out for the year. Yeah.
J.J.
John Brown is
Anyway,
is-
John Brown is
got
dinged
has
up.
some mysterious leg injury related to sickle cell
Michael
trait.
Michael
Yeah.
Floyd is just
He's got a
inexplicably
hammy.
bad. But it all goes back to Palmer, I think. He just doesn't look the same. He doesn't have as much velocity behind his throws, so I'm very worried about him. And I think you could find someone to start over him almost any given week at this point.
Okay.
I'm also acute on Carson Palmer. It seems pretty clear that he's lost some zip on his passes, like he said. He just doesn't look like the same player that he's looked like in the past couple of seasons. So that's part of it, but at the same time, he's got a bunch of yardage. He's at like 285, 290 yards per game. So it feels like he's being able to overcome most of that, except for he's not scoring touchdowns. And I think it's because David Johnson is just too good. He's stealing all of the touchdowns. Last year, Carson Palmer was top 6 in the NFL in passes both inside the 20 and inside the 10. This year, he's 15th inside the 20, 12th inside the 10, and that's because David Johnson is top 3 in both of those categories.
Yeah.
They're giving it to David Johnson.
And it's working.
In the scoring zone, and it's working. Yeah, I mean, he second in the NFL in touchdowns behind Melvin Gordon right now, and I don't see why that would change. They're winning games with David Johnson and with Carson Palmer pretty clearly starting to, the beginning of the end of Carson Palmer here. I don't know why they would stop giving it to David Johnson and try throwing it to their injured and underperforming wide receivers instead. So I don't see that happening. There's a tough schedule. Week 16 is at Seattle, so you're not using them in your championship game if you manage to get that far. They play the Vikings as well. He's an auto bench there. So, yeah, acute level of panic here on Palmer.
Well, this is a tricky one because you both brought up a lot of good points, and you both have acute as the answer.
With kind of differing points.
Yeah. The reason that I'm going...
Everyone knows David Johnson is awesome at this point, so I did.
Then you didn't bring it up. I mean, maybe you should have.
I guess I should have.
The key here, though, when you go second,
I'm
it's
panicked
so
on
much
Carson
harder,
Palmer
right?
because David Johnson is awesome.
That's
all I heard.
Okay, all right.
You're the boss.
Key here is if you go second and you've got the same answer, there's a lot of burden to come up with new stuff that wasn't already did, and that's what you did.
True.
It's an impressive job. Star to the king. Final guy, Jordan Matthews. I've got him in one league. He's been killing me. Just 2 touchdowns on the season, I believe.
I'm stunned you actually have him in a league because
I've been anti him from the beginning, and it's not that he's not a good player. It's just I never trust Chip Kelly, and now this year, things have not gone very well. Super quiet the last 3 games for Jordan Matthews. What is the appropriate level of concern for Jordan Matthews? Let's go to the
I'm not even going to bother to erase here. I'm going to stick with acute on Jordan Matthews,
okay.
and I've been a Jordan Matthews bobo from the start.
I've
always liked him,
supporter,
so this is this hurts. But you look at the Philadelphia wide receivers, and they're just not getting it done. As a group, they rank 27th in fantasy scoring. They have the 3rd fewest receptions, the fewest yards, and the 8th fewest touchdowns. So this is the Eagles as a group. None of them are doing anything, and the problem is, in that scenario, at the very least, you would hope that they would be throwing the ball to their best player most of the time, their best receiver, who I think is Jordan Matthews by a pretty wide margin. But they're not even doing that. He's been the most targeted guy in 3 of their 6 games, but he's been targeted 4 or fewer times in the other 3. For some perspective on that, he had at least 5 targets in all but 1 game last year. So far this year, they're using him less than their other crappy wide receivers. Nelson Aguilar, Dorial Green-Beckham are getting just as many targets as he is. So, I don't see why that changes. Carson Wentz seems like a pretty good real-life quarterback. He's starting to regress a little bit. He doesn't look as good as he did in the first 3 weeks over the last few weeks, but one of the things he can do really well is spread the ball around and not just lock on to one wide receiver, which is what most, I think, rookie quarterbacks would do. They would try to lock on to their best guy, Jordan Matthews, but Carson Wentz isn't doing that. I don't know why it would change. So, acute level of panic. I don't see it getting much better.
I'll note this, not that anybody cares about my league, but I did traded him away last night for Doug Baldwin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like that move.
Yeah. It's in a dynasty league as well.
Okay.
So which worries me a little bit.
I like it less in dynasty.
Yeah, because Wentz is going to be really good, but so's Russell Wilson. They're both young, good quarterbacks. All right, what have you got, Brian?
Not like it matters, but I have some.
Not that you're bitter.
No, I don't care.
Some. You should care.
Some? Oh, here.
This means I have next Wednesday off.
Do you want my notes or yours?
You might want his.
Mine were clearly better. So
Let me see. David Johnson, good. Okay. Jordan Matthews, still the most targeted Eagle over the last 4 weeks, and 18% target share. That is outside the top 30 among wide receivers during that span. It's troubling. He only has 1 red zone target in his last 3 games.
Yeah.
Green, Beckham, Aguilar, and Huff have combined for 9.
Why is Huff even in that conversation?
Matthews is the best receiver on this team. I just said some because his schedule is favorable. This week he's at Dallas, who ranks 23rd against slot receivers by Football Outsiders. He scored in 3 straight games against them. If he wets the bed this week, then I'm acutely worried, but I'll just say some for now. Then Giants, allowing 90 yards per game to slot receivers. Atlanta, 29th against slot receivers. At Seattle, not great, but slot receivers usually have the best matchup against the Seahawks. Green Bay at Cincy. Washington is neutral, but then it's great in the fantasy playoffs at Baltimore and then the Giants again. So there's no point in panicking acutely because you're not going to trade Matthews. Unless in a dynasty league. Right. Well, maybe in a dynasty league, yes. But right now in redraft, you're not going to get value on him. So just pray he does something this week. So as for now, it's some.
It's some. How many decades old are you today?
I'm 4.
4 stars.
Nice.
Well
1
done,
star
champion.
per decade. Thank you.
A star per decade. And, somebody was nice enough to bring in some yummy.
Yeah, so that's
Scotch?
the level of
It is a
respect that
Scotch.
my employees have for me.
That's right.
They brought in a 2/3 drank bottle of Scotch for me.
That's right.
For my birthday.
I think we should christen this occasion.
All right.
Thusly.
Ooh, that's healthy.
That's not really much of a pour. You're just, let's face it, you're a pansy. And it's on ice as well. Congratulations.
Ron Burgundy wants some too.
That's right.
Scotchy Scotch.
Scotchy Scotch.
Down your throat.
All right.
Down the hatch, champion. Congratulations
birthday.
on the birthday and the victory. We're very happy for you.
It's good stuff.
It is. It's yeah.
It's very good.
As far as Scotch goes. Yeah. If you come back tomorrow, you'll see something. I don't know. I never know what's coming on Thursdays, but I think you guys make it up as you go, right?
Usually hear something.
You hear something. All right. So there'll be an audio podcast on Thursday. You'll be in for the big daily breakdown on Friday, correct?
Yep.
So that's happening as well on Friday. We'll see you then.